Hello people, and welcome to the map tier list for the Content Creator Map Pack 2 by Sidai. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So we have a new Content Creator Map Pack now. Of course, we had one of these last year, which was from Sanctum Gamer. We also did a tier list for that one. If you missed it, I will leave them linked down below in the playlist. But time to check out what Sidai has done. For those that don't know Sidai, one of the best map makers in the Cities community. And for those that are familiar with Biffa's content, you will recognise many of Sidai's maps. Biffa has used plenty of his work before. But either way, let's get stuck in and find out exactly what's happening with the 10 brand new maps that are coming with this map pack. There's a lot of must-plays in here. This is a very good pack, so let's get started, shall we? And I would also like you guys to let me know which of these maps should replace the Noob's Guide, because once that series ends, we will be starting a new vanilla city on one of these maps. So please let me know which one you think it should be down in the comments below. First up is the Bay of Rivers, and this for me is going to go into a must-play. So Bay of Rivers is a temperate themed map with a 48% buildable area. It has all of its outside connections and all available resources. For those interested in the natural resources, you will find splits of everything, lots of fertile land and a lot of oil. The ore is split across the mountain ridges and some in the flatlands, but you're going to have no problems finding the natural resources pretty much anywhere on this map. Taking a look at the wind all along the coast and the mountain peaks as you would expect. The terrain, most of the Midlands and the vast majority of the map is pretty flat and relatively buildable, with some very nicely terraformed mountain spaces in the north and the west of the map. And for those interested in fishing, you will find pretty much everything other than tuna across the various waterways in this map. But otherwise, welcome to Bay of Rivers, everyone, at the first of Sidai's maps, and there's not too much to say. It's just a gorgeous riverland. Just wonderful work on the rivers here. Really like how they meander and switch back on one another. Really wonderful waterways. So if you're a fan of waterfront build, riverside towns, you know, the map called Bay of Rivers is probably going to be up your street. Let's check out some of the detailing. There's some new palettes that I haven't really ever seen before, so we'll check out some of Sidai's ideas here. So we have a little elevated dirt bridge here next to some castle turrets and some content creator trees with some nice little castle detailing. This is pretty cute. I'm a fan of this one. Heading over towards your starting tile, of course, with Sidai, we are greeted with some really wonderful custom vanilla interchanges. Just really nice. You know, we've seen Colossal Order definitely getting better at sort of custom interchanges for maps, but you can clearly see a difference with the content creators. Just really nice interchange work, especially for vanilla. Just great, wonderful. Your starting tile does open out into a roundabout, which is nice. You know, you're not just going to get those two dead-end highway roads like you do with the vanilla maps. You do have a little preset intersection to make use of. We then come over to some further vanilla detailing with the use of a dirt road against a castle ruin, which is very appropriate. Almost looks kind of like a little mini drawbridge. So again, just nice and creative. Enjoy the detail in here. As we move through the valleys, we really get a sense of just how perfectly terraformed all these mountains are. I do love a mountain within a map, but it has to be like a nice mountain. It has to have ridges, has to have like character to it, and you know, Sidai's nailed this. Really wonderful. Also love as well how the highway splits here. There's a lot of examples of this near where I live, up in the northwest of England, as the mountains, or as the highway passes through a mountain, it kind of splits off and moves apart from one another. So that's really cool. It's a nice use of the highway stuff. Throughout the map, we also come across some kind of preset slip roads here with a little bit of detailing and some other stuff. There's some quite random bits of this around the map, which we'll cover, but it's new detailing and it's creative use of the networks and the props. I think that's really cool. And then again, we arrive at another little custom trumpet buoy with some layers of height with a little rail bridge going over. This is how we like our rail, right? Nicely embanked and elevated as it passes over networks, no horrifically steep bridges. And then we just meander through this pine, eastern cottonwood, and is it the tall pine? Is it the boreal pine? Sort of forest, live oaks as well. It's a nice tree palette here. And then we arrive down into some kind of preset key work, if you like. This is kind of screaming out to be turned into a cargo harbour at some point, isn't it, as your cargo goes out. So it's nice that we've got those sort of land masses prepared. They can help you kind of plan your city. I enjoy that. We then arrive at some more random detailing. There's some bridges here, which is quite cute. You could definitely extend this pathway out, and then we come over to some elevated pathways here. I'm not sure what the functionality of this is, whether or not it's kind of preparing walking infrastructure, or if he's kind of using it as like a vanilla smaller key, maybe. But there's some elevated path here with a little kind of indent within the shoreline itself. And then we will arrive at my favourite bit of detailing. So like he's left the highways here to be expanded as you would want to expand them. And look at this bridge detailing here. This is probably the best map detailing. Look at that. That is so cute. A little detailed construction site at the foot of the bridge. I think this probably takes the crown, unless anything else does today, of best vanilla map detailing. That's so cute. A little construction site at the end of a dead highway like that. I haven't done this. This is in the map. It's absolutely fantastic. I love that. And then the dead highway resumes over here as well, where it meanders back down. You also use the highway bus roads too, which is nice. It's always nice to see those in a map. Of course, you can switch them out for something else if you wanted to, but they are there. And then our main ocean sort of shoreline and landmass sort of comes to a head here with a little bit of kind of vanilla breakwater detailing with a lighthouse, a castle ruin, and some rocks with some overgrowth. And more randomly, another highway bus ramp. I think this is here for perhaps sort of building terraforming purposes to create kind of like a breakwater maybe, or just to line up the terrain, but it's here. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's there anyway. I can't imagine anyone would use this. You'd probably delete it for something eventually, but there's a random bus highway slip lane here. And then just the whole map in general, all of its networks are just so tastefully done. Nice little bridges as it passes over kind of like a little dried up riverbed here and comes back over, and it's just a great looking map. It's nice and flat and buildable. You've got great mountains, all your connections, all your resources, some more really nicely designed highway networks here. Nice and buildable, lots of riverfront opportunities, and just a really pretty looking map. So Bay of Rivers definitely a must play for me for all of the aforementioned reasons. Just a really nice start to the tier list, and I could definitely see myself building on this one day. I do like the Bay of Rivers. It's a must play for me. Next up on the Map Pack 2 tier list is Desert Valley, and this for me is going to fall into a middle of the road B tier. So Desert Valley is a European themed map with an 89% buildable area. It has all of its outside resources but no sea lane connection. Those interested in the natural resources, the oil and ore barons of the world will absolutely rejoice in this map. There is a ton of it, very little fertile land, so you will struggle with farms here. You will be able to make use of wind along most of the mountain ridges and indeed across a lot of the flatland. The terrain is extremely unique, and we will get into this in a second, but as you can see, most of the mid to the west of the map is fairly buildable. However, anywhere else you're going to run into some significant terrain problems. And with the fishing here, with the very limited water, you will find a small amount of every type of fish, but there isn't a lot of it. So this map is super pretty. I feel like people may think I'm going to be slagging off this map for making it B tier, but there's a few things that hold it back for me. One, it is a very desolate landscape. It's a super pretty map, and there's very strong kind of Monument Valley vibes here. Anyone familiar with the American West, kind of that Route 66 vibe, driving through Utah and Arizona, you get to like Monument Valley. It's kind of got that vibe to it. We are playing again with a mixed biome. We've got some grassland and obviously a lot of desert here too, obviously being called Desert Valley. Here is your starting tile next to a really, again, just wonderfully designed interchange. And he's actually used what looks to be the sub-building from the supermarket European Unique, I think, to create like a little, looks like a kind of like a gas stop sign on the edge of the highway, doesn't it? That's a really clever use of a prop. I'm a huge fan of that one. And again, some really nice detailing in and around the interchange and lots of nice layers and yeah, just very nicely put together. This is just superbly designed. And then you come into your sort of starting water over this side. You do again emerge into another sort of larger interchange here where it looks like the AI is having a little bit of trouble. You alright? Not entirely sure what's happened there. That could be something conflicting within my sort of setup there, so let's not factor that into the ranking. But we are seeing some billboards here too. I enjoy that. That's really cute. So he's just got the props off, so kind of like highway side advertising. This is definitely something they get in the UK, like lots of billboards next to the motorway and people advertising their companies. So it's really nice to see one of the content creators be created with the props that come in the vanilla game. Sidai so far has done a really good job with that. And then we arrive at another interchange again where we've got another one of those like America gas signs. This one does seem to be floating a little bit, which is, again, might just be kind of a little balk of me loading the game up, but it is there still. But it's pretty nice. Coming across some of the vanilla detailing, we arrive at some sort of tree circles, which is a nice use of the trees, I think. You could perhaps get away with the idea that it is maybe a crop circle of some kind, and it looks like there's some sort of like irrigation ditches maybe, to each of them, perhaps sort of obviously trying to farm in the desert like an old abandoned desert town. You got to give one thing to Sidai here. His prop detailing in these vanilla maps is absolutely great. so much better than we get with anything from Colossal Order. Just, yeah, really nice creative use. So happy to see these pathways and little kind of abandoned huts and little villages over here. Very appropriate. Heading into the Crater of Doom, this thing is entirely filled with ore. So your ore mining pit would go here, I imagine. But definitely some kind of like dormant volcanic crater vibe, right? Be quite hard to build around, but you could definitely get an ore quarry in here if you wanted to. And then we arrive to some pretty enormous networks as they cross over the desert valley, of course. Where we do actually have, you know, that desert valley. This is some nice sort of terraforming terrain work here as it comes down. I think it's pretty cute. Looks like a dried out riverbed, which is obviously appropriate for the name of the map before it eventually arrives at the water in the map. So of course you won't get a sea connection here, so any kind of harbour or sort of waterfront, sort of major waterfront ocean build isn't a possibility on this map. You're just playing with very limited rivers. They are nice rivers, albeit, but it's across a very difficult landscape as it moves through all this sort of stuff here. So if you're looking for like a beginner landscape-friendly map, Desert Valley definitely isn't the one. And then we come over to some more detailing with our little train line here as it comes across, some more content creator trees and various props. And then we also have this splendid little sort of tunneled highway tunnel here. You know, tunnels done right, they're going into the land, not down into the earth. So yeah, big fan of those tunnels, and then they emerge out the other side to provide one of your map connections. So Desert Valley definitely opens itself up to perhaps a Midwest American themed build in terms of maybe something out of like rural Utah or Arizona, New Mexico, etc. Also the fact that its base game theme, if you're unable to change that, is European, might put some people off too. But it is an absolutely beautiful map. Please don't walk away thinking that I don't think this is nice. It is very nicely terraformed, but in terms of ranking it as a playable, buildable map, most people I think will struggle with this one, but it's a very distinct style. No sea lane and a European theme, with some things I would probably do differently here. Land it as a middle of the road B tier map for me. Next map in the Map Pack 2 tier list is Fertile Desert, and this for me falls as our first A tier map. So Fertile Desert is a European themed map with a 79% buildable area. It has all available natural resources but no sea lane connection. For those interested with the natural resources, again the oil and ore barons can rejoice. Huge enormous oil fields within this map, with some sensible spatterings of fertile land in and around the waterways. Those interested in the wind, here's what you can expect from a strong directional breeze in Fertile Desert. Its terrain is mostly flat and buildable with some nice rolling hills before you disperse into what would probably qualify as mountains in the northwest of the map, but otherwise nice and buildable. And again, what very limited water there is, you're going to find pretty much everything but tuna, but again that can always be dealt with terraforming if you want it. So Fertile Desert is another mixed biome kind of map, again like we just saw with Desert Valley, but this one has much more approachable terrain, not nearly as kind of gnarly valleys as the last one had. But either way, let's take a look at it. So again, we're just met with kind of this really cool, like it's been painted out, ready to be built. Just great detailing, again from Sidai, very creative use of vanilla props and networks to create like a highway construction site, so you can come in here and complete this eventually once you want to. Just very cool. I love stuff like that. And then we just kind of follow this river down into some little kind of like split riverways here with lots of nice layers of height coming across the networks. It's all very cute. I'm a huge fan of all this sort of stuff as we come around, and then we'll head over to the starting tile, which is on the opposite end of this highway network. And we come into some really cute, again, custom interchanges. This is almost like a, does that become like a French horn, I think, rather than a trumpet with all the different extra slip lanes on it. But some very nice highway inspiration from Sidai. I think a lot of people, even me, struggle with just how to get off the highway sometimes, and I never thought of a configuration like this. I can't imagine this coping too well with traffic. If you're going to have a lot of stuff out here, you probably want to upgrade that at some point. But it's a nice little highway connection. You don't just have the two dead highway roads anymore. At least you've got something to play with. And perhaps one of the most interesting features of this map is that Sidai has drawn out what seems to be kind of ILO-style highway art. And there's some great inspiration here. Actually for ILO's highway art, like the lizard. And they've all been drawn out with the castle ruins, so you can delete these if you want to. But yeah, pretty cool shapes. It's like a spider, sort of a bug that's been hit by a car, maybe. Yeah, just kind of like old school art, I guess. By old school, I kind of mean like caveman times, obviously. A little bird over here as well. So it's pretty cool detailing. There's nothing else out here. It is very much just flat desert. And this castle ruin art, so perhaps some kind of native homage inspired build you could put in here if you wanted to. And then we arrive at the widest waterway at the north part of the map, where you do get a fair amount of shoreline to play with, and then what looks to be a kind of mock vanilla dam that Sidai is painted over here. It would have been nice if this was actually the hydroelectric dam, but I'm sure there's some sort of vanilla limitation that stops him from doing that, but it's a nice, again, creative use of vanilla assets to add a little bit more personality into the map. And then as we head into the hilly northern part of the mountain, you're on a pretty severe gradient here, so you could definitely play on lots of hillside builds. Again, it's mixed biome. There is sort of grassland within what looks to be kind of like old, dried up riverbeds, perhaps. And then this is perhaps one of the more interesting network things I've ever seen. So we have the highway cross over a gully, and then it enters the land. It emerges into a tunnel and then back out again and then back under, where it loops around and then comes back out here. I've never seen a highway done like that before, like the little exposed tunnel. It's pretty cool. I like this kind of thing. This is kind of what I did in Ilos' Sky Harbour with the exposed highway. Yeah, so I kind of like it. It's pretty cool. It's very unique for a highway, at least. It's not just regular boring highway, I guess. And then this thing snakes all the way up the hill and provides your outside connection. But otherwise, there's not too much to say about Fertile Desert. It is a fertile desert. You've got some grassland in here alongside some desertland, so you can create a varying mix of different themes. Of course, you'll play with no sea lane connection again, and a base European theme, which of course console people won't be able to change. So it will put some people off, but it's a very pretty map again. Superb vanilla prop detailing, great interchanges, nicely terraformed rivers, and just great network work from Sidai as a whole. Bring it as a very strong A tier for me. I think no sea lane and European and the somewhat difficult terrain probably keep it out of a must play for me, but it's definitely worth having a look at this one. A lot will find enjoyment here. Next up on the Map Pack 2 tier list is Hilly Strait, and this for me falls just about into an A tier. So Hilly Strait is a boreal themed map with a 26% buildable area. That is one of the lowest in the game. It has all of its outside connections and all available natural resources. Those interested in the natural resources, you will find an enormous offshore oil deposit, which finally gives you an excuse to use the offshore drilling rig, which is very rarely used without extra landscaping tools. Plenty of fertile land within the dried up riverways and plenty of ore on the mountain ridges as well. If you are interested in strong directional breeze, here is the wind you can expect to play with on Hilly Strait. The terrain, you can see why it has a 26% buildable area. There is very limited flat space within this map, nearly all localized around the main central river, with extreme mountains to the northwest and the southeast. And for those interested in fishing, there is pretty much everything, although these shellfish are very much winning the war for domination in the water. So let's take a look at Hilly Strait. First of all, we will analyse the map's name. There is a strait with the water, and there is a lot of hills here. And the mountains to the north have, again, some really tasteful detailing that Sidai has put together, so big appreciation for this. Again, it's all this little stuff that pulls it up. I love this. You'd struggle to get here, and the terrain is extreme over this side. You would pretty much never build on something like this, which is fine. You know, maps can have significant mountain ranges, there's nothing wrong with them, but don't be expecting to develop anything out this way, unless you're an insane builder, of course. I got a nice little train line coming through here, where we do kind of cross over the water, and then there's another mock dam up this way. Again, would have been cute if it could have been the hydroelectric dam, but I'm sure there is a vanilla limitation that stops that from happening. And then again, some nice creative use of like a little floodway for the dam, like a relief slipway to drain some water out using the trenches, down into a little gully. So that's really cool. Again, it's very sort of appropriate on-theme detailing. I love stuff like that. Heading over toward the starting tile, we are met with a very nicely sort of network bridge, nice and smooth as it arches over the water. There is also cargo ships, and your shipping lane passing directly beneath this, so you've got a nice sort of active waterway as well. And then the highway meanders down into its first Y interchange, and then splits off in numerous directions, at which we can follow it. We arrive at the starting tile here with another classic Sidai intersection. Again, I'd probably change up the flat road. I can imagine that bottlenecking after a little bit of time, but you know, you can do what you want with it after that, of course. That's not really up to Sidai. And then this highway just meanders back out of the map across this flatland, which is where you're going to get the vast majority of your buildable space. Across the highway there as well, and then in these spaces is where you're going to get most of your building done. You can definitely get up into these southern mountains. They're not nearly as extreme as the ones in the north, and there is kind of a little riverland flowing through this, which is nice and cute. So again, I'm just I get like, I turn to jelly for good terraforming. I'm just like, yes please, yes please, sensibly terraform rivers. It's so nice to see. And then we've got lots of these kind of natural cutaways in the mountain where kind of the water has clearly sort of flown down, and I do enjoy kind of geographical detailing like that, if you like. There was one map from the airport today, I think it was Hilly Port, wasn't it? It had like a really recessed sort of eroded riverbank to it. That was a really nice map. And then as we come over to the west side of the map, we arrive at some more sort of fun finagled highway bridges. There's a lot of them here as it passes over the different gullies that run off the mountains. So you're constantly switching from land to bridge and then back to land again and back to bridge. So it's cool. It's a slightly more interesting network. And then there's also some pretty dry, desolate islands just off the coast here. Probably wouldn't make too much use out of these. Maybe kind of a small collection of island and nature reserves might be quite a fun build to tie in here. But they're too small really to do vast amounts of things with. And then again, there's more tasteful little path detail in here with the sort of peninsula with a lighthouse. That does look out over the Hilly Strait. But otherwise, Hilly Strait, it's an A tier just about for me, I think. It's not my sort of map because there's so little buildable space. It wouldn't really suit my building style, this one. But it is extremely nicely terraformed. It's a fairly decent boreal map, definitely kind of up there with maybe the top 6 or 7 boreal maps that you can play. It's certainly my favourite theme at least. But there's a lot of potential here. Is it an absolute must play? Probably not for me again, just because of the buildable land. But that's my playstyle. Some people might find this as an absolute must play, and that's fine. But for me, it's just about an A tier map. Next up on the Map Pack 2 tier list is the Land of Isles, and this for me falls into an absolute must play. So Land of the Isles is a temperate themed map with a 48% buildable area. It has all of its outside connections and all available natural resources. For those interested in the natural resources, you are going to get a ton of oil around the mainland with spatterings of ore in between, and plenty of fertile land dotted around in sensible places throughout the map. For the wind, it's actually mostly in the water here, unless you're going to be exploring high up onto the mountain peaks. The terrain is super unique with lots of nice waterways knocking around and nicely terraformed mountain peaks throughout the whole map. And for those interested in fishing, yet again, the shellfish are winning the war, with pockets of anchovy resistance holding out within the bays, but tuna and salmon, it would appear, have become nearly entirely extinct. So why is the Land of the Isles a must play? And do we really need to say anything? What a gorgeous map. Absolutely gorgeous. The mountains, these sorts of mountains make my legs go a bit weak. Just so nice, so nicely done. Anyway, we'll get into a wonderful, what I can only describe as a figure of 8 interchange off of the highway. Just really nicely done, especially for a vanilla interchange. Also, shout out as well for the use of the castle walls as a retaining wall within the interchange. I love a retaining wall since playing Ilos, and it's so nice to see it implemented into like a vanilla design like that. Very clever. And then there's also a little slip off of the interchange over this side as well, before the rail line and the highway both follow the mountains up to a little lake. And again, we're seeing more kind of classic split Sidai highways. I really do enjoy this, not having them sort of parallel all the time. Before we come over some bridges and it flows onto your next landmass, which again is dominated by this kind of larger mountain range with all this nice, friendly, flat, buildable space. I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, that this map is temperate. It kind of seems like it would lend itself much better to tropical. Well, that's not a complaint, just an observation, I guess. As we come across the main body of water, we again arrive at what looks to be kind of like another preset port that has again been painted out using the bus-only highway roads. I'm not sure if there's a specific design choice behind this from Sidai to use the highway bus lanes here as opposed to, I don't know, like a dirt road or something, but they're here anyway and they flow around the abandoned factories. And he's also brought a rail line in here as well, which is tremendously helpful for using the cargo hub from After Dark. to already have that infrastructure put in, especially in a vanilla map, is tremendously helpful. So I'm a big fan of like the preset keyed off ports. You will also find another one here as well. And you've got some pretty significant waterways here too. Like there's a lot of water across the map, so you're going to be getting a lot of beachfront opportunities, lots of waterfront builds. So if that's very much your style, then you are going to enjoy it. I also do enjoy how kind of like the tree lines are almost following kind of old school field boundaries. I do enjoy that. I can find it a little bit off-putting when it's too rigid. It can look a little bit false, but when it's quite naturally and sort of organically done like that, it can just help you plan a build almost as well when you have that boundary there to help you sort of judge the scale. And then the map spills back into its starting tile here before coming into some really, really cool sort of terraformed split off network. There's a train line coming through here as well. And then it comes back out the hill and through here and onto this road and this bridge, and it splits off again. It's so cool. Just, it's so nice to have networks with personality in what is essentially a vanilla map, right? And then we come over here, and then we come all the way around these mountains, and again, I just loved how the highways have been integrated into the landscape. Very, very nice. And then again, this meanders out across the map and then exits as a outside connection. You do have the occasional island within this map, and they are got a little bit of vanilla detailing on them, but they're pretty small and mountainous to get anything major here. Perhaps a small nature reserve or resort island or perhaps observatory would work well for these spaces. And then as we approach the mainland again, we arrive at more of these kind of natural, organic, marked out sort of field boundaries using the tree line for them. But overall, the Land of the Isles is a wonderful temperate themed map. I think possibly one of the best temperate themes. It's certainly up there with Azure Gulf as just one of the most nicest waterfront maps. Really, really enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think of it down below, but you'll certainly be having a nice time on the Land of Isles. Definitely one of the standouts for me. Must play, in my opinion. Next up on the Map Pack 2 tier list is Mountain Plain, and this one for me falls as a middle of the road B tier. So Mountain Plain is a boreal themed map with a 70% buildable area. It has all available outside connections and all available natural resources. For those interested in natural resources, there are significant deposits of oil in the north and south of the map with tiny threads of ore and fertile land in between, but not a vast amount of them. They're kind of spread pretty thin far across the whole map. For the wind in and around the shorelines and the mountain tops is where you're going to find it. Your terrain, as you can see, the east and the west are extremely unfriendly for building. You are playing with significant mountain ranges in those spaces, but the central strip down the middle of the map with a little hill and some riverland is more than buildable. And it would seem that the salmon and shellfish had formed an alliance against a very small pocket of anchovy and tuna that do remain within the water for those interested in the fishing. So why is it a middle of the road one? For me, I just think there's better boreal experiences available than this one. It's not a horrendous map by any means. It's very much middle of the road. It's definitely not a crap map. It's certainly not a must play either for me. But either way, let's head over to our starting tile where again we arrive at another wonderfully customized interchange from Sidai. Kind of like a really nice cute angled trumpet, isn't it? Just wonderful work. And then we come down to the starting interchange here where we've got this little like switchback loop that comes over and then down. So it's really cool to kind of see little configurations like this. I always enjoy seeing new highway inspiration. So you enjoy your starting tile in a nice flat buildable area and very close to trains, it has to be said. It's nice to have trains this close to your starting area where again we arrive at some wonderful network and detailing work from Sidai where we have a castle ruin, some props. I love his use of the logs here too. And then a little repeated tree design next to a rail that emerges into what seems to be again kind of like a pre-marked, this is where your port should be sort of design. You've got your rail coming in here, the quays, nice wide boxy waterways. So perfect for some sort of harbour if that's the way you wanted to take it into. The river itself is actually quite interesting. You can almost see here where you could run the level terrain tool to create a really switchy, windy river network. Rather than just having the main body of water, you could definitely carve some of these out for yourself. That's definitely what I do think. You could create a really interesting waterways here just by following the brown sand against the grass to create a really dynamic river network. And then this does flow all the way down towards the end of the map where the river does end a little bit abruptly. It's just kind of like, boom, there it is, that's the end of it. I understand that they probably can't give an outside connection there because then ferries or shipping things would try and come down it. But it's a little bit blunt. That's a bit awkward for me. It is right on the edge of the map, so it's right within your 8 to 1 tile boundary, of course. But it's there anyway, in case you care about it. And then our highways as well, of course. It's just more continued superb network work from Sidai. Just nice and parallel, nice and even. No horrendous bumps or jank happening here that we've seen before across Colossal Orders maps. And then heading over the hills and far away into the mountain river, we do arrive indeed at the mountain part of the mountain plain map. And again, you're going to struggle to build out here. The terrain's pretty severe. You could definitely get away with perhaps some smaller mountain towns, which is always a fun sort of rural theme to build in. But yeah, it's definitely buildable here, not nearly as extreme as the ones that we saw in Hilly Strait, but it's enjoyable enough, I think. So for me, it just comes down to, well, is this the best boreal experience I could possibly have? And in my opinion, no, it's not. It's a nice boreal map. There's some nice mountains here, nice rivers. I just think that there's better boreal maps around than this particular one. Some people probably find a lot more enjoyment here than I would. Like I said, it's nice rivers. You've got all your resources, all your connections. There's nothing major to complain about. It's just not a map that really blows me away that much. So for me, Mountain Plain is a nice, healthy, middle-of-the-road B tier. Next up is the map River Delta, and this for me falls as a very high A tier. So River Delta is a tropical themed map with a 78% buildable area. It has all of its available resources and all available outside connections. Those interested in the natural resources, it would seem one of the main riverways is almost an entire oil slick. There is a lot of oil there, and plenty of helpings of fertile land around the flatlands and ore toward the mountain. Those interested in the wind along the main ocean shoreline and the mountain tops is where you'll get the most use out of it. Or the terrain, very flat and super friendly for beginners besides the mountain range to the northwest, but lots of nice buildable space here. And for those interested in fishing, yet again, it is the shellfish and the anchovies that are dominating the waterways. But River Delta very much lives up to its name, and there is a lot of really tidy, nice rivers around here, lots of meandering vibes, and it just creates such a nice aesthetic, doesn't it? Really like this one. Love the white sand here as well that is present across most of the riverbanks and indeed some of the mountains over there as well. But just getting a bird's eye impression, you can certainly see why this river is called River Delta. There is a ton of them, and they all look absolutely fantastic. We could approach some more vanilla detail in here with, again, what looks to be like maybe an old farmstead that's been abandoned with some pathways and very repeated tree patterns with an old abandoned farmhouse next door to it. As we head toward the starting tile, which is over here somewhere, over this way, yes, here we go. And then as we arrive at the starting tile, we are greeted with another wonderfully designed custom interchange, again from Sidai. Really, really nice, so much more interesting as well here than just like a regular Y interchange for switching 4 directions. It's really, really cool. So, super big fan of these interchanges. And then again, you flow into more flat buildable space out here with a happy close by rail connection, which feeds into your national network out here. We stumble across a little coconut plantation as well, so there's definitely some sort of like repeated farm vibes going on out here. You can definitely see what Sidai is trying to take this vibe in. Again, with some more path network and trees in and around. Before we follow the river all the way back up to the only mountain range within the map, it's nothing too serious, it's nicely terraformed as well. And there's also some little pockets of water knocking around in here, so you could definitely crack this open with a little bit of level terrain and then make your own waterfall. That would absolutely be a possibility here. Also over on this one as well. This one's pretty nice. And then as we mooch over to the far north east of the map, we approach some more false vanilla dam action using those bus roads and castle room walls again. And then this is where one of your river picks up. There's one thing about the rivers in this map is that they just switch back and forth so nicely. It gives a very kind of strong Asian feel to the map when it's like this. It kind of reminds me of almost like Chinese kind of rice field vibes. I'm sure there's a specific province in China I'm thinking of that has this kind of geography, but it's escaping me right now. And then over to the south of the map, you do have a very long, super buildable coastline for your main metropolis. Lots of tourism here. You could keep it natural. Big bridges over the bay, of course. This is where all your oil is, so you could have perhaps a major refinery and an oil drilling rig out here. There's a lot of possibilities to take this map in against some, again, I just can't help but saying it, just truly beautiful waterways. You've got this big main one that comes right through, and then it branches off and winds in all these cute little directions, and just there's a lot of possible builds here. I love the waterways. And then again, we just see little spatterings of this white sand in and around the map, and it's a really subtle touch, but it makes a real difference to the texture of the ground. I hope you agree. But otherwise, River Delta for me is definitely one of the better tropical maps that we've had. Probably not the best tropical map ever, but certainly a very strong A-tier contender for me. And I can totally understand why this would fall into an absolute must-play for some. But the River Delta is a very strong map for me. I enjoy this one. Next up on the Map Pack 2 tier list is River Plains, and this for me is going to fall into a fairly underwhelming C-tier map. So River Plains is a European themed map with an 81% buildable area. It has all available outside connections and all available natural resources. For those interested in your natural resources outside of the forestry which comes with the map and of course can be placed, it's pretty sparse amounts of your main natural resources, although enough to make some significant builds, but it's localized to specific areas of the map. Your wind across some of the plains and against the river and some of the hilltops is where you can expect to get the most out of it. For those interested in the terrain, it is very beginner friendly, very flat and almost a green canvas to do whatever you like with, but towards the east and the north you are going to get some more unfriendly, more mountainous terrain to work with. For those interested in fishing, the tuna are staging a comeback, however the shellfish do dominate most of the water space. So why is it C-tier? Why isn't it higher than that? I hear you asking. It's just a little bit featureless for me. This isn't probably the best sort of European map that we've come across any of the tier lists. It is very much kind of a big green canvas for you to do whatever you like with. This is your starting tile over here. Again, another wonderful sort of custom Sidai interchange, which we all love, don't we? You know, I can't fawn enough over these custom interchanges, and Sidai's put some really nice designs together. So you've got another one here. But then besides that, you head over to the mountains, where indeed you do have the rivers and the plains, which is what the map is of course named after. And then this is actually your primary sea connection down here. You can see them coming and going. Where you do kind of get some more sort of Norwegian fjord vibes here. As they come into the river, you get a little bit steeper. And then you come over the crest of the hill, and then it kind of rolls down into that plain. There's not too much of note to talk about here really, apart from some fairly nicely terraformed sort of gullies and canyons that come down the mountain almost as like old dried riverbeds. We do come into a little bit of almost like port harbour preparation here. You definitely see like a fishing harbour building in this area, and then have it go and explore kind of your main waterway out here. We also stumble across another wonderful custom Y interchange, or custom trumpet interchange rather, over this way. Which then flows up and into the hills and then back out of the map to serve one of your outside connections. But I hope you can just kind of get an impression here. It's just a little bit featureless for me to kind of consider building a city on this. I think there's definitely sort of more appealing European themed maps. Northwood Hills is one that comes to mind from the Campus DLC. That's got some really nice landscapes and terrain in it. We do have, however, a wonderful recessed train line into the ground. These are great to detail and just add a little bit of layers and depth into town. Having a recessed train line like this, lots of networks backing over across of it, so I like to see stuff like that pre-prepared. And then we're seeing more of this classic kind of sort of bush and tree lining to kind of mark out fields in kind of like an old school farm. You can imagine out this way, and of course you've got the sort of classic rocks and flower detailing all around it. It's pretty nice. I do like these fields like I've mentioned. Apart from the mountains and the rivers, the rest of the map is just kind of like this. It's just not really for me. Some people might find more enjoyment out of this, others less. It's really down to personal opinion, I suppose. But otherwise, there's not really that much more to notice about River Plains. It is rivers in a plain. Some will find absolute enjoyment out of that, and some will absolutely detest this style of map. It does serve as a nice buildable blank canvas if you want to get a huge city going in a landscape that isn't too intimidating, but for me, that's not really my style. So it's going to fall fairly low down as an underwhelming C tier for me. Next up on the Map Pack 2 tier list is Table Mountains, and this for me falls just about into a B tier. So Table Mountains is a European themed map with a 77% buildable area. It has all available outside connections and all available natural resources. Those interested in the natural resources, you're going to find no significant deposits of anything but plenty of fertile land and ore that have been trickled across the map to make use of. Those interested in the wind along the rivers and mountains, it's kind of sporadic in this one, so you may struggle to get the most out of wind power here. In the terrain, some fairly larger rolling hills towards the southwest and the north, but otherwise it's fairly friendly and kind of rolling hills vibes. And for those interested in a little bit of fishing, it is the anchovies and salmon that are very much winning the party here. So why is it just about a middle of the road? It kind of feels like an upgrade from River Plains. It's got some slightly more interesting terrains in terms of kind of rolling hills and bumps and ridges and sort of a nice big winding river that comes right through the middle of the map. And you also have some nice networks here as well. Again, big compliment to Sidai for his network work. Nice sort of elevations coming over. No horrific rail intersections like we used to with the Colossal Order maps. And then another little cute custom trumpet interchange as well for your starting tile. You'll also find some pretty faithful vanilla detailing across the various tabletop mountains that are present throughout this map, which of course is its namesake, but nice village and castle ruins here to enjoy. We also approach another one of the tabletop mountains here as well. So it's very much just sort of themed after these areas with a little bit more vanilla detailing up here as well, and you can kind of get a general lay of the land from up here. Again, it's just it's a pretty kind of safe bet European themed map, and I know that the base game European theme will put some people off. Again, it's just kind of a rolling hills, a blank canvas. It's slightly higher than River Plains was because it's a little bit more interesting of a landscape to me. Again, it's all personal opinion. Some might find this more interesting. Some nice vanilla detail here as well with the gun turrets looking out over the river with a little bit of trench work out the side of them as well. And as we follow the river down, we arrive at this cute little island which you could use something for, and then you get into this more sort of green blank canvas to do, you know, whatever the hell you like with. There's many different opportunities out here for different sorts of builds. So if you do enjoy these kind of like blank canvas maps where there's not too much sort of geographical jazz getting in your way, nothing to factor in, and you just like really nice, easy buildable space, you'll probably get quite a lot of mileage out of this map. And then as we head towards the edge of the tower here, very well within the 81 tower radius, you arrive at a trumpet interchange with a Y train intersection, which was really cool. I love this sort of like grand transport infrastructure. So again, 10 out of 10 marks yet again for Sidai's network work. Just easily some of the best we've seen. I think you can certainly tell a difference between the content creator map packs and the rest of them. And then there's also a little lake up here in the mainland as well with some rocks around it. So you've got some inland water features as well. But again, as we fly around, you get an impression it's kind of just rolling green hills. Again, some people will absolutely love this. This will be the best map ever for them. But for me, it comes across as a little featureless for the most part. As we follow the highway alongside the river, we are greeted yet again with another really, really cool variation of the trumpet from Sidai, which feeds into the highway. And then this pops out over here again as well, where we've got another dead highway connection that Sidai has left for you to introduce once you have the budget and the capacity for it, and kind of marked out where almost the slip ramps want to go with the vanilla dirt path. So I really appreciate that, kind of like the map maker almost egging you on to expand some sort of infrastructure through these channels. That's a really nice tip. I enjoy that Sidai has done that. It's the first time we've really ever seen it. But besides those, you are met with a vast canvas of green rolling hills, and some people will absolutely adore this, like I mentioned. But for me, it's just a kind of middle-of-the-road, safe European theme map. It's not particularly my landscapes. There's nothing here that really pulls me in. But certainly not the worst map ever, but not the best either. So, nice, sensible, middle-of-the-road beta for me. And last and certainly not least, we arrive at the final of Sidai's map packs, and this is Winding River, and this for me falls into a clear must play. So Winding River is a tropical themed map with a 46% buildable area. It has all of its outside connections and all available natural resources. Those interested in the natural resources, you will find a ton of oil against all of your main waterways, especially down the rivers, with plenty of fertile land inland and an enormous kind of ore island to make use of, so natural resources are absolutely not a problem here. Looking at your wind, as always, the water and the mountain peaks is where you'll get the most out of the angry breeze. Those interested in terrain, a very unique landscape, lots of water here, so not massively 81 tile friendly, whilst the northwest of the map remains very mountainous. And for those interested in pillaging the sea of its fruit, shellfish is what you're going to find here if you're interested in fishing. So why is it a must play? And again, I think the map kind of speaks for itself. It's this kind of tropical island, mountainous, riverland, grassland, almost like we mentioned earlier, kind of like the Chinese rice fields with those really switchback winding rivers. This is very much that vibe. Super tropical landscapes. I really love the rivers here. Before we arrive at our starting tile, and what a wonderful, absolutely wonderful little interchange this is. Especially considering this is vanilla. This is nuts. This is so nice. I love this. Just a huge fan of this configuration for a vanilla network interchange, and what a wonderful way to introduce your city. And then we also have some tasteful vanilla detailing next to our starting tile as well. And again, what a wonderfully creative use of all the castle assets. This is a really nicely put together sort of like castle ruin area. Again, big props to Sidai for using the props in this fashion. It really brings purpose to having the castle ruins sort of in the map when they're clearly part of a ruined castle and not just on a hill on their own somewhere random. Let's have a look at the mountain ranges. Pretty unbuildable for the most part, apart from some valleys and shorelines that do lie within them where you could perhaps squeeze in. A little rural mountainous town here in the tropics would be a really cute build. But again, kind of more towards the northwest of the map, you're not going to spend too much time out here. We do have an outside connection over here. Again, where I seem to be getting a little bit of weird traffic. I think it's just a bit of a node fart, isn't it? There you go. Now they're happy. But again, just really nice winding networks with bridges and elevation and layers as your train comes under this one and it switches over the river. Just look at that for interesting network designs. Great work from Sidai. Really, really love this as it flows through this mountainous landscape. Beautiful map, absolutely beautiful, and this just carries on as well. Look at all this delicious network work. My goodness gracious, probably the best networks we've seen in the video so far, I think. Then we come back to this little winding river over here again, which spills back out into the sea, where you're getting a lot of that oil. So big refinery builds out here. Before we come back into some very obviously terrained or terraformed work, rather. Again, over here, where Sidai is encouraging us to come down the route of creating a cargo harbour here by sort of piecing some industry in a rail line and some very obvious boxy frames to hold some sort of cargo harbour for the area. And then another really cool mental interchange too, that's got a train line going through it. Yes please, for layers of height. That's just amazing, isn't it? It's really cool. Yeah, I love these little custom interchanges. I'm going to keep saying it because it's true, and Sidai deserves recognition for those. Again, we come on to some more very heavily kind of boxy frames here, as though Sidai is teasing us to put keys in eventually once we get out here. With some more tasteful castle ruins up this side as well. And then we'll head over to the main island, which again has a ton of trenches on it, but you can kind of see how Sidai has done this. So if we pull up the natural resources view, the whole island is made up of ore, essentially. And what Sidai has done with the train line and the trenches is essentially make your own preset ore pit. Very clever. Very clever. This would be a great ore build. The entire island is preset and ready to go to have a major ore mining quarry put into it. Don't need to do any of the awkward terraforming work that we have to do to get these things to look good. It's already here, ready to go. With a port already hooked in here as well. So you could definitely export directly from the island. Very cool opportunity to build on this space right here. And then our main coastline is dominated by mountain ridges for the most part, unless you come around more to the west where you do get a little bit of open shoreline where you could include something. But for the most part, your metropolis and cities is going to lie within the main landmass, and you definitely do some kind of industry construction over out here towards the northeast of the sector. But a really interesting dynamic tropical landscape, and probably one of the best, if not the best, tropical maps that there is to play on the game now. But I do like Winding River, certainly a must play for me for all the reasons we talked about. I'd love to know what you guys think of it, but for me this is an absolute must play. Definitely spend some time in Winding River. I'd love to see what people do with this map. But otherwise guys, that is going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed, likes, comments and shares below really do help me out equally as much. If you haven't enjoyed them, then please feel free to leave me a dislike as well. And let me know if you agree. Do you disagree? Do you think I've made a good point? Do you think I've made a horrific point? I'd love to know what is your favourite map from this new map pack. And a big shout out as well again to the content creator himself, Sidai. Huge props for getting a content creator map pack made, mate. You must be very proud. And there are some real gems in here. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, my new vanilla Let's Play will be taking place on one of these maps, and I'd love to know which map you guys want it to happen on, so please get those down in the comments below. And your other thoughts as well. Do you like this map pack? Do you prefer Sanctums? Do you love some of these? Let's have a little discussion, see what everyone thinks. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.